It's Papier Mache playtime. Welcome, this is Rozani. We're going to begin with this armature that I've created using different types of paper, and it predominantly had newspaper. So follow along with me and ask any questions in the comments. I will be pausing periodically to allow for questions and comments. You can see I already added some stiffener to it, being the liquid starch. So what I want to do is elongate this right leg right here because it is out of proportion with the one that is bent at the knee. And I'm doing that by adding a few pieces of paper dipped in the liquid starch. And I'll be using the liquid starch throughout this entire video. I'll make this a little bit longer by just adding a few little pieces of paper and creating a little foot with a pointed toe, which will eventually be the little shoe. Let's keep going. Make sure to check your proportions as you go along. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once you've figured out the proportions, you need to make sure that it's going to be stable and sturdy. You don't want it to be flimsy because this is going to be the armature that supports the costume. So, this is a good time for you to decide how you're going to position it permanently. Now, while it's still in these stages, you can bend it. And if you are using the masking tape, you can position these pieces however you like. I may decide to change the position of the arms and the legs. But for now, here are the things that we need to do. And you can leave your comments and questions at this time. At this point, I want to start shaping it a little bit more and filling in any gaps that are flimsy. And of course, I'm using pieces of paper, torn strips dipped in the liquid starch. You can use any types of paper that will absorb the liquid. And here I'm shaping the legs out a little more. Now, these will be underneath the garment, so they don't have to be perfect. But for my purposes, I'm stylizing them a little bit, but you may just want to keep them simple. Let's keep going. I'm using my own imagination and freestyling this little pixie. It's always good to have some sort of reference, but it is not absolutely necessary. You may want to make something completely different and a little more primitive, rustic, or maybe even more advanced, but mainly have fun with it. See how it's beginning to take shape? Now, you can see I'm adding on to the little foot, which eventually will be a cute little shoe. So let's keep going. And please don't forget, you can ask me any questions. If you're watching on the replay, you can always pause and return to complete your project at a pace that works best for you. If you are with me now during the chat, in the Premiere, please ask your questions anytime, and I'll be able to reply within the duration of this video. I think it's important for you to know that I did not include any wire in this armature, but you can do so in the beginning before you add any liquid starch or papier mache medium to it. Now it's still very flexible for me because paper can be softened, and it's thick enough where I could still bend it, move it, shape it as I need it. It's important to let it dry in between stages so that it is not flimsy. You want it to be hard, and mine is holding up really nicely for now. So I'm going to continue working. Please let me know how yours is coming along. Meanwhile, let's keep going. Always examine your work in progress and decide which areas you are going to work on next. I decided I'm going to work on this back piece because it's a little flat here, so I'm going to fill in the rump using tissue paper and covering that with copier paper. Let's keep going. Here are a few pointers that you may want to consider. In using papers, you want certain types, some that are softer, and those are real good to use as fillers. And then the regular paper for the top layer. Now let's move on to the eyes on the face. First, I'm going to put in these little round shapes and work from there. They're going to be held further in place with a little bit of tissue paper, like this. Believe it or not, it's that simple. You can use your fingernails, your fingertips, or a handy-dandy tool like this bamboo skewer. It's one of my favorites. And because it's quite soft, this is what I'm going to do next. However, if you want to, you could just paint them in. But here we go. I'm going to make some indentations with the skewer. So that'll create an eyelid. Here we go. So I'll do that on both sides. And if the paper comes up a little bit, just press it back into place. While I'm thinking about it, I'd just like to remind you to leave any questions you have in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So if you've made it here this long, I really appreciate it. Could you please let me know that you've made it this far with a little emoji? I would love to see a little fairy. and I thank you so much. As you've noticed, this little video is lengthier than a lot of the ones that I make because it's in a tutorial format. And even so, I've sped it up a little bit because my full-length tutorials take a long time, several hours. So I do need to divide them up into segments. But in this first part, I hope to cover a lot of this project. We'll see. Let's keep going. I just now added a little piece for the forehead to give it a little dimension. And now I want to work on the little tip of the nose. I know this is a little bitty piece, so I do need to work with it in different ways, and I want to create a little turned up nose. But I'm going to have to let it dry in between stages, then I'll go back to it. But you get an idea here. Here's a close-up. See the little profile? Anyway, moving right along, I want to work on the lips. Here we go. So I'll start with the upper lip and continue from there, just pressing it into place. Now at this point, the lips are not defined, but the mouth is, and that's what I want to create first, is a mouth shape with two little pieces. Let's continue. Now you can see that once I've added the bottom piece, I'll be able to play with the mouth opening and create a little expression. Just like this. And I'll ease this little skewer into the mouth area, going from side to side and up and down until I get a nice little smile. And I love making these faces. I mean, it could be laughing, it could be pouting, whatever you want to do. Just have fun. I do have fun with these. Well, let's keep going. And now I'll let this dry for a while. Once it dried, I outlined the little facial features in pencil, temporarily until they can be painted. Okay, it's time to move on to the hands. And I'll start out with some crumpled tissue paper right here. Now this is going to be shaped in a way that makes it easy to hold an object. So in this case, the hand needs to be partially closed with a little bit of an opening. So it will be bent with the fingers towards the face, and that's what I'll be inserting later. You can do any type of prop, but I thought since it's springtime, a flower would be appropriate and fun. So I used a little skewer there to make the opening, and you see I just bend it over. Let's keep going. Imagine the possibilities of the little items that can be held. It could be a mushroom. It could be a toy or a leaf, and anything along those lines. Now when you do your hands, they can be mittens, but I am going to eventually make fingers. But for now, I just want to get the shape and make sure that it is secured into place. I think, though, I need to add this little thumb here for starters. Let's keep going. And then I move on to the other little hand and work on it a little bit. Once you have the basic shapes, you allow them to dry, and then you come back to add the details. First, I need to secure this little hand with a little piece of paper and hold it better into place. All right, let's keep going. I've extended the arm out, so now it's left a spot where it's very weak, so it needs to be filled like this. I'm simply filling it in with some tissue paper and working it into the sleeve. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the arms. And I'll start with this one. I will need to begin filling it in, once again using the tissue paper. And of course, adding the little copier paper pieces on top of that. Just like this. And I'm going to continue on and do the other side, using the same process on this arm. I can already see the difference that it's made. And this will be my stopping point. And I'll allow this very to dry. Well, my friends. This concludes part 1. So thank you for sharing your time with me. I'll announce part 2 in a separate video. I hope this has been helpful to you. And I'll continue to answer questions in the comments section of the replay. So until we meet again, I'll say bye for now.